Welcome back to another reaction. It is your man here, James. I am reacting to another Piers Morgan video. And just the shenanigans. This will be a full-on debate. They have like 8 people on this panel I saw, so I'm excited to get into it. It has to do with Trump and just the transition into the White House and all those sort of things. Good stuff. I saw that David Pakman was on this. We had Dave Rubin. There's a few other liberal and conservative guests, so I'm excited to see what they're going to chop it up. I appreciate Piers Morgan, I will say, for just being a space where both sides can come together, pretty much say nothing, but at least there's, you know, a forum for them to, you know, meet on neutral ground. I wouldn't consider Piers Morgan neutral ground, but that's on me. I'm saying it for the case of this argument. And yeah, so I'm excited to get into it. Make sure you subscribe here. We do all kinds of this political reaction, content, sports, just popular kind of stuff going on, pop culture stuff. So make sure you subscribe for more content with me. Get in the comments. Let me know how you felt about this video or how you felt about the whole election. Is your hair on fire? Are you very happy? Just let me know. So here, let's get into Piers Morgan. Let's see what he has to say with these good old chaps here. Oh, actually, you know, that's better. I got to make sure I can hear everything. Had to throw the headphones on. So let's get into the reaction without any further.
A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get.
He can actually pave the way for a really nice transition into a
Cringe.
Trump presidency that I believe is going to bring back an 80s style revolution in America.
Having, you know, the smartest guy on the planet stuck into government bureaucracy, I would have thought that's very popular, isn't it?
Department is wrong.
God, you're such a smug prick.
Let's get the shenanigans. Come on. Okay, we're going to see it. Holy shit.
All right, boys, who we betting on?
All right, stay away from that fucking, this is the devil's app right here. Post Malone's just throwing 88,000 down, no problem, no sweat. I love it.
Hard Rock Bet.
Yeah,
Roll with us.
I don't have 88,000 to throw down, but they did take my money over this week. Is this quiet?
First, a stunning victory, now the MAGA revolution. Trump.
The sound went out on the show as they're doing their fucking Trump impersonation.
The White House with Joe Biden today as he sets forth his plans
fucking cuts.
to turn things upside down. Can Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy turn the bloated federal government into a blue chip business? Or are these planet-sized egos heading for a cosmic explosion? Will Trump's new defense team give us peace through power? Or is this a sellout to the neocons? And as the Democrats simmering...
He's giving us a Dragon Ball Z rundown. Let's fucking get to the conversation, brother.
Where on earth do they go from here? In a moment, we'll debate all this with an all-star panel. But first, a short word about an interview we ran yesterday.
He said that it was 4 million that died in Auschwitz, and then they said it was down to 1 million, so they've revised the figure.
Well, how many people? How many people do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
271,000 that died in Auschwitz.
Dan Blazarian, we're just talking about numbers. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just talking about the numbers, brother.
How many do you think were killed in the Holocaust?
I don't know, but I would bet my entire net worth that it was under 6 million.
Well, unsurprisingly, the interview sparks a massive response. Bilzerian has millions of followers, and many of them, of course, called out of the woodwork to cheerlead him. Plenty of people were shocked, as indeed I was in real time, that any public figure could spew such obvious prejudice.
That's what he was hoping for.
Brazenly as he did.
Talk crazy.
Others, well, a few people, are angry at me for giving him a platform. Michael Rappaport said, "I'm sick of Piers Morgan having disgusting, known, proven shitbag Jew haters on his show and saying afterwards, I don't agree. Jewish people, please unfollow this scumbag now. Piers Morgan also hates Jews." Oh, Michael, calm down, you silly little man. I obviously don't hate Jews. And the thing about platforms is that everybody has access to them.
Let's get to the conversation.
You've often yourself been offered access to mine.
Guys, this is not an this is not a reaction to Piers Morgan's fucking apology. Let's move on, boys.
But you haven't appeared yet.
Come on.
The offer still stands if you have the guts. In the new media landscape,
don't give a fuck about your call out of
unfiltered
Michael
or
Rappaport.
uncensored to their followers and acolytes. At least when I interview somebody with incendiary views, audiences get to see those views being vigorously challenged. And free speech is supposed to be uncomfortable. It's only by hearing the polar opposite of your own worldview you can be sure that you're right and understand why you believe that you are. Dan Bilzerian went a lot further than I was expecting him to. I was genuinely appalled by what I was hearing. I started out the interview thinking it was going to be more about his apparent so-called redemption arc. As you all saw, There's no redemption.
All of Dan Bilzerian's content recently, any of the podcasts that he's been going on, it's been about this, like, this angle that he just did on Pierce's show. Don't get it twisted. Pierce is full of shit. He brought him on his show to spout fucking garbage and to get clicks and to be provocative or whatever you want to call it.
He's sunk into an abyss
Whoever's
of
writing me on
anti-Semitism.
Facebook, by the way,
And on that point,
hey, whoever's writing me on Facebook, family member, please fucking stop spamming me on Facebook. Jesus Christ.
People on both sides of the Israel-Palestine debate.
Just kidding. I love
Professors,
my family,
politicians,
but come on.
medics, victims, journalists, musicians, diplomats, comedians, and more. At regular intervals, I've been criticised by people on both sides. Do I think Dan Bilzerian's interview made some big intellectual contribution to his vexed debate? No, I don't.
Of course not.
There's a beginner's guide to the kind of ignorant anti-Semitism that's suddenly becoming
What did
extremely
you
and
add?
worryingly prevalent. I think it was quite an eye-opener. And to the many Bilzerian fans demanding we release the unedited interview because they thought their man surely couldn't have come across that badly. Well, I'm afraid I've got bad news for you. That was the unedited interview. That's what he really sounds like when he actually has to talk about these despicable views. If we cut out the parts, frankly, that I didn't agree with, it would have been the shortest interview of the year, as well as the most shocking. But now down to real business with my
Thank
stellar
God.
panel of white
Holy
dudes for
moly.
and against Harris.
Hang in there,
Host of the
guys.
Rubin Report,
We're almost
Dave
there.
Rubin. Host of the David Pakman Show,
Fuck Dave
David
Rubin.
Pakman. Host of No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. And host of the Ben Ferguson podcast, Ben Ferguson. What a magnificent quartet of white dudes, if ever I've seen one. David Pakman, I want to start with you.
Sadly, the two conservative guys, I'm just calling this out, they are both fucking cucks, and they're going to be annoying as hell.
Well, very clear to me when we spoke before the election that this whole issue of transgenders in sport and so on was completely irrelevant and nobody cared. Let me remind you.
You're saying Kamala Harris and Biden have come out in support of this.
They support policies which actively protect. They support policies that protect transgender athletes performing in women's sport, and I think that is madness. You're saying, well, because most of these things in this UN report were outside of America, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
What I'm saying, it's a completely contrived issue that almost no one cares about in every single opinion poll.
Wow. Well, the problem is, David, you couldn't have possibly been any more wrong, because the New York Times, the liberal Bible, did a whole piece about the ad that Trump ran, which is the.
So I'm gonna let him. I don't want to cut off David's response. But I want to hop in here real quick because I agree with that initial response. And I think Pierce is obviously full of shit as he usually is. It being contrived is completely correct. But it's not necessarily that people aren't passionate about the issue or that it's not something that people don't care about. But in the way it's contrived is that it's not an issue that really affects people on a grand scale, and there's been gasoline thrown on that fire consistently from the conservative media and conservatives in general, just as a wedge issue that causes, broke-ass conservatives and broke-ass liberals to not get on the same page about how they're being fucked over by rich people. Like, that's the real issue. But we have these other kind of wedge issues that get thrown in the mix just to keep, us from really being able to have any substantive conversations with one another about what's actually the issue with our society as it stands. Like, trans people, as far as from a presidential standpoint, if you're making your decision for president based off of trans issues, you're a fucking idiot. Just point blank period. So if you don't want them to participate in sports and shit like that, like a lot of liberals will actually agree with you. Me, myself, I would agree with you that like a biological man, somebody that was born a man, should not be competing in like competitive athletics with people that are of their transitioned sex. I get that. I get that it's a sticky situation. But regardless, once we start having that conversation and we can't get past that super nuanced part of the issue, well, then that's right there is the issue. You know what I mean? We're not talking about free fucking healthcare. So forget the trans part of the healthcare issue. It's people that can't even go get their fucking like normal checkups because they don't have insurance, can't afford it, don't have a job that offers it, or better yet, they work at a job which purposefully hires people in at part-time, so they have no responsibility for benefits and things like that. Like, so these are the real issues. You know, minimum wage being under $10 an hour federally, that is a real issue. Talking about this trans shit, David Pakman was 100% right. It's completely blown out of proportion. But what I was going to say earlier, if there's a trans kid or something like that that's competing, hypothetically, we'll just play with this idea real quick. It's a biological woman who's competing against young females, biological females in this case. Go to your school board, go to the athletic association. Don't vote for your president because of that, you dumb fucks. Just want to be clear about that.
Kamala's for they, them. Donald Trump's for you. They said it's one of the most effective 30-second spots in political history and may have shifted the race, according to her own side, by 2.7 percentage points in Trump's favour after people watched it. Let's take a look at the ad before I come to you.
Hard rock, man. Fucking
Hard
devil.
rock.
For prisoners.
For prisoners, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological...
Throw in the Breakfast Club, because aren't they just purveyors of truth and fucking intelligent conversations? The man that just said that, by the way, he's under investigation right now for property crimes. Give me a fucking break.
Men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That motherfucker on the basketball team was big as fuck, though. Let's just keep it real.
On reflection, David, do you want to admit you were completely and hopelessly wrong about this?
No, in fact, in the aftermath, we figured out how dishonest you were, Piers, during that. And hopefully we can get a little bit of an opportunity. So let me lay it out.
Of course.
First of all, I went back and looked at the UN report in more detail.
Pierce is very dishonest.
The UN report said nothing of the sort that you said. What you were referring to dishonestly was one footnote from an anti-trans organization making completely unsubstantiated claims. So I will wait for the apology from you. The UN report doesn't say that, but that wasn't the crux of your question. Second part of it, that ad with Kamala, I would have loved Kamala to respond to it. All she had to say was at the time that she said that, it was Trump administration Bureau of Prisons policy that that's what's available to trans inmates when determined medically necessary. She would follow the law. You haven't said that. And then number 3, Piers, on who cares about the issue, I checked, Gallup survey, trans issues at the very bottom. The reality is almost no one's trans. Almost no trans people are in competitive sports, and people do not care about the issue. However, there's a lot of money made grifting about trans this and trans that, even from people on this panel. So I get why they keep bringing it up.
Ben Ferguson, you burst out laughing then.
This motherfucker's a liar.
Yeah.
The first shot back.
Yeah, number one, I've never made any money off the issue, and I doubt hardly anyone that I know.
He never made any money off the issue. Okay. So I wonder if this guy has, because I mean, how you make your money is talking about shit, dumbass. So have you ever put out content that has gotten you people to, flock towards your other content or that content because you're talking about trans issues, which once again is a fucking wedge issue, and it's also an issue that affects like less than 1% of the people in our country, for fuck's sake. So not that this isn't something that we should talk about or have conversations about. I think it is, and these these fringe cases I think are things we have to address. But for this amount of our political discourse to be around this issue is just disheartening. It's dishonest. It's and by the way, I like to think of myself as independent. I'm not trying to crush these conservatives, although I do find conservative media to be extremely, extremely dishonest. Same way, I mean, like mainstream media, including liberal media, I think, can be dishonest. I've seen moments of that for sure. But like this right here, this motherfucker, I haven't made any money off trans. What?
If you want to talk about how few there are making money off trans issues, but that was a very interesting play there. I don't think it's a good one, but
it's obviously true.
We'll move on from that to the second point.
Yeah, look, he's like,
Vanderbilt, for example, they said, and I quote, you better get on board as a doctor, and if you don't with trans surgeries, you're out of here. They said that on tape and got busted. Then they said that every kid that we can bring in.
Question.
I'm answering the question, and you may have heard a different question than I did, so you can calm down and let me finish. You look at what they said at Vanderbilt. They said over $1 million is what each kid is worth if we can hurry up and get them these surgeries, because they're going to be on drugs the rest of their life, and we're going to be able to own them for the rest of their life financially, and we can make millions off the kids. They said that at Vanderbilt University. Now, back to the bigger point here about the election.
Okay.
The reason why this was an issue in the election is because Democrats made it an issue.
Just to be clear, because I want to say the Vanderbilt thing. I'm not saying that that's not true, but we're hearing this guy's interpretation of whatever may have been said. And also, that doesn't really, Vanderbilt isn't the spokesperson, and Vanderbilt's whatever medical part of their medical department of their school has nothing to do with a bigger national view on this issue. So just to be clear, you bringing that up, you're just bringing up a random fucking, at least David Pakman's like, hey, you guys, conservatives, conservative media here, alternative conservative media, whatever, obviously benefits, obviously makes money off of pushing this issue and gets people riled up. I personally have friends who have probably met less trans people than they can count on their hands, at least as far as they've known. Definitely have talked to less trans people than they can count on their hands, and they will fucking hit me up in group chats, freaking out about this issue all the time. It's like, bro, but how is this actually affecting your life at all? But then again, you don't have insurance. You know, you're getting kicked out of your house. You know, you lost your job. Like, these are the real issues that, by the way, also affects trans people. This affects all of us. This is something that we could all get on the same page on. And that's the problem. That's literally what, I don't know if on this level conservative media is complicit in it, but obviously, you know, the people that are at the elites of the society, these giant industries that serve those elites. So mainstream media, including mainstream liberal media, I would agree with this, they benefit by keeping these groups separate, point blank, period. And like I said, I would say that also applies to liberal media. There's plenty of wedge issues for them that they, like, I mean, for example, gay people and like the gay issue, that's a wedge issue. There's more gay people, so I actually get that as more of a talking point to really be pushing. But my point being is, like, I see a lot of times where they use the tactic to other conservatives in general because, you know, oh, they fucking hate gay people or this or that. In reality, most conservatives you meet probably don't give a fuck. Literally. Probably don't give a fuck, and most likely are impacted by the fact that gay people are gay around them. Fucking 0%. So, you know.
They wanted to force little girls to be in locker rooms with grown men. They wanted to force women off the podium and allow men
Mark
on
Robinson,
the podium.
huh?
Riley Gaines is a great example of this. Maybe you should listen, and then you'll understand why you got your ass kicked in the last presidential election and nationwide. Actually, I'm glad you guys aren't listening, because you don't listen to the damn people.
He got his ass kicked.
And the people said this was an issue. And then you mocked them, and you act like it's not an issue, when in fact it is an issue. So keep acting like you know what's going on in this country, when the reality is, this was an important issue to voters. It was an important issue to mothers. It was an important issue to moms that have girls in sports. It was a really important issue to men and dads that have young girls in sports. And so when you act like you guys weren't trying to do this, and you weren't mandating that men compete with women and men beat women in sports, and you weren't protecting young girls in the locker room,
do not vote based off that, people,
this is what
please.
you get. You get the American people and the silent majority that said no more of this radical and extreme position, and they showed up on Election Day. And if you would have listened to the American people, you would have understood this issue mattered to moms and dads, including liberals and undecideds.
I mean, presidentially, liberals barely talked about this issue.
Oh, the cranberry. Cute on the outside.
So, like, this election cycle that we just went through, almost
Look, I just don't think
I heard almost nothing about
trans. Bring Brian Tully Cohen in here. You know, as much as
that motherfucker
my
Ben is
Democrat
ignorant.
friends want to try and put their head in the sand and pretend this was not an issue, it just all played into the same big issue for the Democrats, which was firmly rejected by the American electorate across the board, by the way. Latinos, blacks, whites, Jewish, Muslim, just about everybody gravitated to Trump. in this election in bigger numbers than before. A lot of it was down to the economy. A lot of it was down to the immigration crisis. But a lot of it was also down to what is perceived to be just woke insanity, including this whole trans debate. And
I will say for really stupid people, that was effective. The woke insanity, all that, that was effective for really stupid people. And there are some out there, you got to get their votes too. So I don't, wholesale disagree with what he's saying. But I'm really on principle disagree with it because he like glazes over the first two issues, and like creates this pie chart of trans issues. Obviously people voted on it. I believe people did vote on that. But then these other two, which should be giant fucking blocks, the economy and immigration. So those are actually completely reasonable issues to inform who you vote for. That's completely reasonable. I wouldn't argue with anybody. If I have a difference of opinion on you about the border and who might resolve that issue better, or the economy, same thing, I can live with that. It's when you allow yourself to get brainwashed by dumbasses like Piers Morgan, who I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say maybe he got brainwashed on accident. But this woke shit is just not an issue. Like, you're talking about people, for the most part, I'm not saying that you can't, quote mine something from a Democratic official who has said something that I might disagree with, that might be a little bit more radical on the trans issue than, the typical person in America. But most Democratic officials, I'll be honest, they're just not running around campaigning on this issue. This isn't at the top of their fucking list. It's not. Even the woke kind of ideology really doesn't permeate the party as a whole. There are people who are woke that obviously encompass that are in the Democratic Party, but it's much broader than that. It's much broader than that. I just
heard Bill Clinton was warning them about this. Joe Scarborough said afterwards it had been a disaster. You're seeing David Axelrod say
these are all Democrats.
Never have fought on this hill.
These are all Democrats, by the way, that are acknowledging that the party itself has too much allegiance to these like fringe ideas. These are probably people that the entire time weren't really pushing this, and they're just looking at it in the aftermath, and they're saying like, oh, okay, this was a divisive issue that the country in general, just they're not ready to full sail get behind these kind of issues or whatever. So completely reasonable.
Lots of senior people
Democrats
are coming out and saying this was a massive strategic error, because you're trying to basically tell people the sky is blue when it's red.
No, that's not.
The reality is that this wasn't an issue except for the fact that Republicans made it an issue. There was almost a $250 million disinformation campaign surrounding the issue of gender reassignment surgeries among trans inmates. This is a position that Kamala Harris has been virtually silent on for over the last 5 years, but they took a cherry-picked a quote from 2019, shoehorned it into the narrative.
She said it.
Put a ton of money from a...
If you pulled up something that Donald Trump said that was completely fucking wackadoo, Piers Morgan would, I'm assuming, because I've seen it before, it's like, oh, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. Trump is he's just talking. That was just an answer during that interview. Give me a fucking break. And as David Pakman even said, like, really her answer that she's giving there is something that's in line with law. Like, it might not be something that we agree with, but she's just saying, like, if somebody's in prison, they get health care, by the way. They get health care. So if you're in prison and you have something wrong with your stomach or whatever, something needs to be removed because you have some disease or whatever, guess what? They're going to perform that because you get health care, unlike the people in this country that are fucking free. An actual issue in this country, by the way. An actual issue that we should be fighting over is this health care issue. So that's what we're kind of... It's funny because this kind of lightly touches on it. So in prison, you get health care. So therefore, if the proper procedure for if you identify somebody that has gender dysphoria or whatever, if the right way to treat that is for that person to be able to get transition surgery, well then yeah, that's in line with all the other shit that we would do in this instance. So you're just taking issue with that once again because I mean, obviously a fringe issue, and really stupid motherfuckers get into this, and they probably suspect their wife to be trans, to be completely honest.
Very well-funded right-wing media ecosystem behind it, and convince Americans that, again, an issue that Kamala Harris didn't say a word about in this election cycle is somehow the most important issue in this election cycle.
She had so much more money than Trump to spend. So much more money.
$1 billion.
But the idea that the right had all the money here.
It does not change the fact that what the right's money went to
exactly has nothing to do what her amount of money, all that. You're just trying to confuse stupid ass people that fell for it in the first place. That has nothing to do with what they decided, how they decided to campaign, and how they decided to use wedge issues to manipulate their base and people outside their base that are just stupid.
Funded disinformation campaign
And also, by the way, I'm not saying that you should have voted for Kamala. I'm not, but I'm just saying if you voted for him.
You say disinformation. Are you denying she said what we all heard her say?
No, but I am denying that it's her position, or that this was her position in the 2024 election cycle. Some comment that she has walked away from 5 years ago, before she was vice president, does not create her position now. But nobody would know that. Nobody would know that. If I could just have
simple question. Simple question for you.
Ben, if I could just have 1 second to finish my I know that you want to shoehorn it in, but you're going to have to be quiet until I finish my comments. If there wasn't such a well-funded effort, I could do the same thing, bro. I can just talk over you the whole time as well.
I'm asking you a genuine question about members of Congress. Name any Republicans that had trans flags in front of their offices, and then tell me how many Democrats had trans flags in the halls of Congress. You cannot tell me this wasn't an issue when there were congressmen and senators that if you walk the halls of Congress had trans flags up. They made it an issue. They made it an issue,
Let him respond, bro.
Do you just want to yell, or do you want to actually have a conversation? Because I know that you love the sound of your voice. But the fact that somebody
wants to yell. If you watch this guy on your own, fuck you.
I know, you just want to yell. Like, this is, it's great that you have your own show. You can do that into a camera with nobody interrupting you the whole time. The fact that somebody can acknowledge the humanity of trans people is not the same as the issue of gender reassignment surgeries for trans inmates. And if you ask the majority of Americans, because of this very well-funded right-wing disinformation campaign, where again,
this guy's panicking. Hey, real quick, I want to know. Watch the rest of this. This guy in the fucking hoodie is cooking his ass, and the guy over on the right, he's panicking. Every time he gets to about the fifth word in his sentence, he wants to yell over him and freak out. Guy in the suit to the right, bitch made pussy. Come on, listen to what the guy has to say. Respond to what he's saying.
That is why the vast majority of Americans thought she was right.
Okay, look, hang on. Before I come to Dave Rubin,
respond to what he has to say,
guest, the former Democratic congressional candidate, Brianna Wu, who is also a trans woman. Brianna, welcome to Uncensored. Yeah. I can't think of anyone better qualified, given you're the only trans member of the panel now, to respond to what our two liberal friends are saying.
I'll be trans if you'll give me a chance to talk.
You've had so many shows.
There's something actually there. There's something there, Dave.
It's always some gay person that's talking on our behalf. So I'm really excited today to talk about how everyone here is wrong. David, I love your show. I consider you a friend.
I can't be wrong.
You and the Democrats are completely wrong about what trans people need. We don't need you advocating for, trans vaginoplasties in prison. We need to retreat back to the basics of what we need, which is HRT and healthcare. And the problem is the Democrats have been captured by this fringe left that has redefined what trans means to all this non-binary nonsense and all this stuff that has nothing to do with how we got our rights in the first place. Ben, you can appreciate this. I was the first trans person to ever transition at Ole Miss, our alma mater.
He doesn't appreciate that. He's like, why the fuck did they let you in?
Very different. It was 20 years ago, toddy. And the thing is, the way I got equality, got people to respect me in Mississippi, was not by screaming at them or lecturing them about my pronouns. It was getting them to see my humanity. This is something trans people...
These guys, they probably went there around the same time that people were walking around the campus, yelling racial epithets and doing all that kind of stuff. Ole Miss, what an institution.
Completely lost. And the problem is the Democratic Party is unwilling to call out these bad actors. And because of this, we are having a conversation that does not serve trans people. Piers, I am begging you on this show, stop inviting these stupidest leftists on to make the argument for trans civil rights. Let some people actually understand this stuff. And Dave is laughing because you understand integration as a gay man. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've done the same playbook your whole career.
Well,
this works. This is how you
off,
got
I'm only
marriage.
gay. I'm only gay starting at 10 p.m. What time is it? We'll have to check on that. But actually, you're completely
She's like, you
right.
know integration. He's like, I do know integration. I pretend that I'm not gay all day.
Brianna, you're completely right. What's happening with the left is that these saviors, these progressive warriors that you see in these boxes here, think that they know more about these people than they know about themselves.
Absolutely ridiculous.
If anything, these guys are suggesting talk about it less. If anything, and honestly, including myself, honestly, not that you can't still advocate for the rights of people that want to transition or whatever. And like I said, I think most people on either side of this fucking aisle, they almost agree. Like, it's like, liberals, if the average liberal, you pull them off the street, most liberals that I've spoken to anyways, I'll say, they're going to be pretty much against somebody that's a child transitioning. I mean, most people are, especially through surgery. Some people may be okay with the hormone treatment, and there may be some disagreement there, but I mean, that's a place to have disagreement. My point being is, like, most people are going to be pretty malleable and understanding on this issue, aside from people on the absolute fringe. And that's who these people are arguing. They're shadowboxing against those people. That's why it's so useless to have conversations with people like this. Not conservatives, because I like a lot of conservatives, but people that get fucking their complete perspective warped by like this MAGA kind of reality. It's like, dude, yeah, most people, it's like that is just not even. David Pakman was right. It's like 8th, 10th, fucking 20th on the list of problems for most people who identify as a liberal in America is, you know, are we making sure people transition early enough? Nobody gives a fuck about that like that, dude. People want people to be able to get care. I'll say, like, people want people to not be discriminated against and treated poorly because they may identify with something that's out of the norm. Like, I think a lot of liberals think that. But I hope a lot of conservatives think that. I mean, why would you want that? So...
By the way, you know, this has nothing to do with a well-funded evil money machine that the Republicans were doing. There's something called boys and girls. And
Rubin's
they are
the right
different.
guy to talk about
and
that,
most
isn't
parents, oh God, you're such a smug prick. Listen, most parents actually want to defend their daughters and don't want them to have the crap kicked out of them by boys, and they don't want them to be playing boys in soccer or any of these other things. That is a defense of girls. If someone, as an adult, 18, 21, we can discuss the age, wants to dress how they want, have any surgeries, take whatever drugs, do whatever they want with their body, most people, even Republicans, don't object to that. And I have no problem referring to Brianna as she, because I can clearly sense she would treat me with respect and I'll treat her with respect. And it's a two-way...
No, you would refer to her as a woman because unless you're checking genitals, and I don't know about this person's genitals and I don't fucking care, you would assume that person's a woman. That's why. You don't have to respect or whatever. It's not even that deep. If this person was talking differently and you decided that you didn't respect them, like let's say they came on and they had an extreme trans, just like liberation fucking view. They're like, yeah, fucking people should be able to change do reassignment surgeries at the age of 13 and shit. I mean, I guess then maybe you wouldn't respect them. So, but I mean, still, then it's just not a reason to not respect that person's pronouns, especially if it's like you'd be having to go out of your way to be a complete dickhead. They're obviously presenting as a woman. Like, it's like, give me a fucking break.
Rather than pandering and bowing to a bunch of people that could not give a crap about anybody else.
Yeah, and David, let me bring in David Pakman again, because you were very quick when I asked how you felt about being so wrong about this, to accuse me of being misleading, disinformation, misconstruing a United Nations report. So because we're a very nimble team here, while you were talking, they just went and double-checked, because I was curious what you were talking about. And we found, we found the United Nations report. And it's not a footnote, as you said, it's page 5 of the report. It says, and I quote, the United Nations says nearly 900 biological females have fallen short of the...
I think what he said as far as a footnote, he's saying, like, you have to check the people that they're doing the investigation, or they're doing the study, because that's what he said at the beginning. He said that it was from a right-wing organization. Now, whether that's true or not, who knows? But that's what he suggested. earlier.
Because they were beaten out by trans athletes. The findings.
Also, by the way, note that Piers couldn't just refer to this, probably because he didn't even fucking read it initially. He probably just was given some notes before he hopped in front of the camera. And like, hey, this is something you want to touch on. This is something you want to touch on today. Da-da-da-da-da. So he probably didn't even read the report himself. He just started fucking, referencing it. And then that's why when David Pakman was addressing it specifically, he was quiet as a fucking church mouse and couldn't even respond. Because he didn't know what the fuck he's talking about. So producers in his ear went and looked some shit up for him so he could look slightly informed.
By the UN's Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, entitled Violence Against Women and Girls in Sport. The report said more than 600 athletes didn't medal in more than 400 competitions in 29 different sports, totaling over 890 medals. The replacement of the female sports category with a mixed-sex category has resulted in an increasing number of female athletes losing opportunities, including medals, when competing against males, the report said. So, David, again, would you like to now apologise for being not only wrong about this being an election issue, but being wrong about your correction when I asked you if you were sorry for being wrong?
Look at the underlying source, Piers. I have it printed out
it was
in the other room.
It wasn't a
Look
footnote.
at the underlying source. Now, I do want to say one thing about this. I actually agree with a lot of what Brianna and what Dave Rubin said. I actually agree with I am not the savior here to do X, Y, or Z for trans people. This guy Ben looks like he just laughs like a hyena. What I'm saying is I don't actually think I even need to play that role. I don't think this is the issue that maybe you think I believe it to be. So I agree with a lot of what Dave Rubin and Brianna said there. I do think it's important to consider that when Dave Rubin talks about well-funded this or that, his Russian money source just dried up, and he's the last person who should be talking about funding sources. And to be honest, Dave, hold on. I can't even hear Ben. Why would Ben jump in? I'm not even addressing Ben. I think Dave's a little upset. Hang on. Dave's upset that Brian and I passed the
This bro's throwing the fucking cape on, coming to defend. And honestly, here comes Piers Morgan. You
made a very direct charge against Dave Rubin. Let Dave Rubin reply to that.
No one believes your BS anymore. Jesus Christ, these people are so pathetic.
They've been indicted, Rubin. The tenant...
Time out. Nobody believes his BS. Bro, yeah, there's paperwork, brother.
People were indicted.
I got indicted.
No, you got money from Russians, dumbass.
If you weren't a smug prick, to quote him earlier,
I didn't say Rubin was indicted. I just said the money dried up.
Dave Rubin and the others involved did not know about it. And this is why people think you're kind of a jackass.
Yes, this is why everyone hates
putting words in my mouth.
The reason why you read the report. And by the way, Pakman, if this happened to you, and in the
Ben's
report it said you were unaware.
If
it said that you were unaware, I would defend you because I don't think you indict people for things.
I'm
the federal government
Dave.
says in the
I'm
indictment,
defending
in the indictment,
I'm defending
they had no knowledge of the money where it was coming from. So don't be a
I'm
jackass.
defending Dave on that note, but the money dried up.
Pakman. Pac-Man, which I'm quite good at. There's a reason, Piers. There's a reason that everyone hates progressives, and the reason that everyone hates progressives, it's not just that they're wrong about all of the issues and they will lie and their only real goal is power. It's because they're also smug elitists. And Pakman, I did see online the other day you were crying because your audience is purging you and you're running out of subscribers and you're in a doom loop. And the reason is no one gives, Piers, pardon me, a shit about this woke bullshit anymore. We've had it, and now you guys can sit back and be quiet. You want to talk about people being paid for their ideas?
Just let me address this.
It's you people who have had the entire cultural machine for 20 years. You've had all of entertainment. You have had all of Hollywood. You have had all of music. You've had all your P. Diddy parties and Epstein and everything else. And now enough of us have had it. So crawl back into your little irrelevant cave.
Why do you think there was no conservatives at those parties? I don't know.
Can I address any of that, Piers? Is that allowed?
Sure.
Okay. It is absolutely true that in the 48 hours after the election, a lot of very upset leftists started pulling back from political content. I was hit by it.
No, not from political content, from your political content.
I have to be able to talk about it,
them about everything.
I have to be able to talk. I have to be able to get a word in. Unless you just want Dave Rubin to talk. Let me know, Piers.
I love hearing Dave Rubin talk.
I would prefer that.
Okay. No, if there's no rebuttal allowed, then I won't rebut.
You've probably done most of the talking so far, so why don't you do a bit more talking?
What is this guy talking about?
I'll say this and then I'll be quiet the rest of the show.
Because Brian hasn't said anything for ages. I want to bring him in.
The theme, I want Brian
Piers,
in.
You're a dumbass.
That completely reversed. I do think that it must be that Dave is upset that Brian and I have surpassed him in viewership and subscribers. Because if you just look at the numbers, it lasted 48 hours. They all came back.
I don't even know.
This is basically like when Trump and Biden were sitting there talking about their fucking golf swing. Bro, we're having a fucking debate about shit. Like, can we talk about that?
This other guy.
Well, look, if it's going to come to that, I'm the biggest rocket in the room, right? I mean, it's like as Trump said to Kim Jong-un, you got your little rocket, I got my big rocket. So
Piers Morgan, bro, you got every bit of your fucking audience from being on television. These people built their own platforms. Your platform came from being on fucking writing on the fucking New York Post and shit. Like,
don't get into the size of each other's YouTube rocket.
But that's the smug nonsense. Nobody cares about that.
It's the facts, Dave.
Pakman, I honestly have no idea what your
Let me bring in Brian.
I have no idea what your views are, but I couldn't care less. I know your ideas are terrible. Like, I don't care what your views are. Who cares?
Let me bring in Brian.
You brought it up.
Brian, on a wider point about this whole issue of wokeism. You know, Elon Musk was big on this for the entire presidential campaign, saying that there's a woke mind virus.
Look at
and
this,
it's going to get rejected.
trans lady at the bottom.
It has
She's going fucking nuts
been
over there.
rejected. And I do think we have reached a tipping
Anxiety
point
through
now
the
where
roof.
people have just felt that the left has gone so far bonkers. Look at Bill Maher. Bill Maher's politically where I am, pretty much. And he shares my view completely. The liberals basically have gone
guys are fucking
nuts.
tools.
They've taken these extreme positions on stuff that most Americans, and in fact it's the same in the UK, but most Americans just feel.
There have always been people who are liberals on that spectrum that have taken extreme views. Same as conservatives. There's always been conservatives, for example, that think that we should go back to how the South was, for example. Obviously, I wouldn't. I mean, and I have heard people paint this as like, oh, all conservatives are racist, so on and so forth. But no, just because there just so happens to be, you know, a decent amount of racists that subscribe to that ideology, it doesn't mean that you can paint the rest of the people that subscribe to that ideology with that brush. It's like the causality kind of discussion. It's like, you know, either way. So with this liberal kind of view of it, when you're looking at liberals, it's like there's always been liberals who have been like in favor of socialism or straight up communism, for fuck's sakes. So that's not a new thing. It's just not indicative of the entire party. It's now that, you know, we have these completely dishonest, basically they're tone deaf conversations, just yelling back at one another. So, you know, the person that identifies with you can like cheer you on or whatever. I don't really know what the point is because there's not much of substance that they're able to get into. And also, especially because anytime one David Pakman or this other guy starts to really talk and really challenge the issues, this guy at the bottom, Ben, that looks like a fucking he could chomp the fucking tailgate off of a fucking pickup truck, it jumps in there and interrupts with just fucking psychobabble.
No connection with whatsoever. As people like Axelrod, Joe Scarborough, Bill Clinton, others, as they all come forward and say this out loud, do you kind of agree with them? I mean, do you accept there's got to be a lot of inward looking by the Democrats?
Liberals.
To say,
those are all liberals.
We've gone too far.
Here's why this is not going to go away. It's because it's not that Republicans are descending into some woke pit of you know, the depths of hell. It is that everybody else will accept Republican framing on wokeism. And so, I think I'm a pretty good indicator of where the mainstream of the Democratic Party is. Do you know how many times I've spoken about trans issues on my shows because they were the #1 issue of the day? Literally never. Literally never. But if you watch Fox News, if you watch all of the ads that happen in this election cycle, you would think that it was all Democrats could think of from the second they woke up in the morning until the second they went to bed at night. It was, how can we get more people surgeries, gender reassignment surgeries? Let's get just trans, sports, like the whole thing. It is not what Democrats are talking about, but it's what Republicans exploit in terms of convincing
I don't agree. Hang on. Don't all shout, please.
It is so difficult.
Why is the moderator? That's all I'm saying. Why don't you moderate? Why are you hopping in to disagree?
On that one point,
it is so difficult to finish.
Brian,
a sentence.
on that one point, all I would say is this: both Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have signed up to trans athletes being allowed to compete in women's sport. So it's not a right-wing propaganda campaign to try and tell people that's what's happening. It is official government policy.
Did Kamala Harris say a word? Did Kamala Harris say a word about trans people in this election cycle?
She has definitely spoken about it this year.
Yes.
This year,
yeah.
while she was running to be the president of the United States.
Even then, even if she did mention it while she was running for president, it's like it's evident how little she mentioned it if it's difficult to really recall these instances.
Seems like an important distinct.
She may have mentioned it during the campaign. I wouldn't be surprised.
What we're talking about here.
She
mentioned the issue of trans.
Actually, I think she did at the town hall. You're right. You're right.
She did.
There you go.
Yeah. She talked about it in CNN during the town hall. Like, here's the problem with what you're saying is.
But that's not that doesn't counter what he's saying. He's not literally saying like, hey, we don't care about it. He's just saying it's not a big ticket issue. So her addressing it that's not a gotcha at any level. You would have to actually demonstrate that she was pushing it as a issue to the forefront. If anything, the things that I saw her talking about most was like, hey, look at these conservatives that agree with me. Look at these conservatives that think Donald Trump is a piece of shit. Look at these conservatives that are going to be in my cabinet. I'm going to have a cabinet of mixed cabinet. Like, so come on. Does that really sound like what they're describing? No.
It's Democrats that advocated and mandate that women have to compete with men in sports. There was no Republican doing that, and you say like it didn't exist now. You say that it's not happening where they're actually doing transitional surgeries to very young children. It's not Republicans that are doing that. Republicans are passing laws to protect kids under 18 from body mutilation. You say that it's the NCAA that's not allowing athletes or the Olympic Committee in boxing at the Olympics. We all watched it, men beating the hell out of women. And then you say it's not an issue of the left. If it's not the left that's doing this, then who is it? Because it sure as hell isn't the
Olympics
right.
were in France,
this is
bro.
why I go back to the point. You lose elections when you lie to the American people to their face and you say, we're not doing this. When everybody sees you're doing it.
Well, let me again.
First of all,
hang on. Let me again bring in Brianna because you are.
The fact that there are people in Congress who support trans people and support trans identity, whatever, that is, you see how he's putting that in this conversation as if then that equals that they think that kids should be able to transition and have gender reassignment surgery. There is a huge spectrum that's being completely ignored. It's completely being looked at as if it's a white and black issue. It's not. It's obviously gray. And I think honestly a reasonable point of view on this is that there should be some kinds of treatment available. That just...
Hang on. Let me bring in a trans woman, who's put her hand up. I know
this is my whole problem with all of this, Piers, is, look, respectfully, the liberal shows here, you're right. You don't talk about trans issues. You don't invite people like me on. We don't have a say in our own party. And what has happened? This fringe, progressive, nutjob part of our party has hijacked my movement as well as we've hijacked so many other movements. Look at black people. Do you think black people want their local police department burned down and defund the police? Of course they don't. Do you think most women want to shout their abortions? Of course they don't. Trans people are just the latest victim. And the problem is the left. Respectfully, trans people don't have a voice on the left, so you're listening to this non-binary, communist, Hamas-supporting fringe, and they're the ones talking to Kamala and saying, look, unless you stand with, vaginoplasty in prison, you're a transphobe. So, of course, the entire party is going along.
So, one thing. So, Hamas-supporting. Let me just point this out. Kamala Harris never once gave any indication that she would not be full on supporting Israel. They literally wouldn't even let Palestinian people speak at their rallies. These are things that I actually take issue with the Democratic Party this election with. So this fucking lady is completely full of shit and deranged. Obviously not. There are trans people on the left. It's just it also leaves room for those people that she's talking about, people who are non-binary or, extreme cases. You're also welcome to speak your portion on the left. typically, I mean, when it is operating at its highest level, I think that's what we all would want. We all should support that. We want to hear all these different ideas clash and be able to come together where we agree and also be challenged where we disagree. Like, that's just, yeah. So I disagree with her. There's obviously trans women, trans men on the right, I mean on the left that, and on the right, but and on the left that can speak out. It's just not something that I think that generally people are obsessed about on the left. People are obsessed about pushing it. Now, there are people that are obsessed about it on the left, just like the right. But I would say it's captured the imagination, let's just say, for lack of a better word, of the right in general. You know, it's an issue that, like I said, my friends, that we live in a pretty conservative area. We're not overran by fucking trans people at all. It's not something that we deal with every day. Although I know friends who have lost their job, kicked out of their house, or on government assistance. These are all real issues. Things that don't have health insurance, have had major health crises recently. All these things are actual tangible issues that have affected people that I know. The trans issue is not one that I know that has affected these people in my community. So
with that, the problem is then it gives Ben and his ilk this ammunition. So they're the only ones talking to America about these issues. You heard him say a bunch of stuff here that's just not true.
Okay.
And we have to deal with this.
What did I say? It's not true. Hold on.
I
From
think
one
if
Ole
you're
Miss grad
talking
to
about
another, what did I say? This is
one
not
Ole
true.
Miss grad.
There's nothing that I just said there.
The woman that was in boxing, we're not sure yet. I personally believe she's intersex, but that is a different issue than calling her.
Well, actually, that's not right. No.
There was two boxers.
Brianna, hang on.
Please, if I'm wrong, let
the
me know.
latest report. The latest
You're
report
right.
is that. Hang on, I can answer that. The latest report that came out of France, an investigation that came out of France last week, is that Iman Khalif, who won the gold medal, who fought an opponent who quit after 40 seconds because she'd never been hit that hard, that Iman Khalif has the male chromosomes, and that's why.
So if there's a investigation into it, why is it that there is an investigation into it if we're completely for it? If we completely support it, why would we need to look into that? If it didn't matter if they used to be a man or whatever, then why would they take the time to investigate the issue? Long pause on that. Let's think about it. Okay. Obviously, because they're trying to, I'm imagining here that they're trying to see if there's any wrongdoing.
He was banned from
Which
the
is
World
an intersex
Championships
state,
along with
correct?
one other fighter.
No.
And there's been no actual proof that she doesn't have male chromosomes. So for all intents and purposes, I'm afraid it looks like she is a biological male,
Which means they didn't lie.
albeit not a full biological male. In other words, my
intersex.
understanding from that investigation is that
Ignore
she
it.
has male
Ignore her.
sexual reproductive organs, but not completely.
It's a dude.
Don't even address any of it. We're bringing this person in because I think that you know, trans people, I think they should be able to speak about this issue. Once they're speaking out about something that doesn't actually confirm your own biases, now all of a sudden you're talking over her, you're not even answering the question that she's asked. She's asked you a direct question specifically. What kind of chromosomes does intersex people have? Okay, people who are intersex may have a mix of chromosomes, such as XXY, or they may have some cells that are XY and some cells that are XX, or they may have just one X chromosome, XO. Other combinations can occur. You know what? Let's actually look. If you've hung out with us to this point, I fuck with you. Make sure you subscribe. If a person has XY chromosomes, what does that mean? I'll say, are they a man? If they are intersex. This means a child may not have the typically man XY or female chromosomes XX chromosomes, and instead have a combination such as XXY or XYY. Some intersex people do fit into either XX or XY category, but develop female anatomy on the outside and male anatomy on the inside. I mean, I don't know. So it seems definitely more complicated than what they're
You can win big on Hard
treating
Rock
it
Bet
as.
with a little bet.
Damn, I just accidentally hit
Or a
next
Post
video.
Malone
Fucking played
size bet.
myself.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Big payouts for every kind of player. Hard Rock Bet. Roll with us.
Anti-Semitic writer,
No.
and there's been no actual proof that she doesn't have male chromosomes. So for all intents and purposes, I'm afraid it looks like she is a biological male,
Which means they didn't lie.
albeit not a full biological male. In other words, my
intersex.
understanding from that investigation is that she has male sexual reproductive organs, but not completely.
It's a dude.
But what
That's
it does,
exactly
but
what
what
I
it does
said.
do,
That's
it gives
exactly what I
it gives her the advantage
It's
of
a
male
dude.
Ace
biology,
Ventura.
which means that she won the gold medal. Look, I want to segue out of this,
I
Brianna.
don't support trans.
This guy yelling, "It's a dude." I hope this fucking cringe lady. I mean, this trans lady is fucking cringing right now. These are the people that you're got on this fucking call to support. Toddy, fucking body, she got up the potty, whatever the fuck. This is who you're hopping on here and aligning with, is these fucking idiots who he's literally unwilling to hear what she has to say. Nobody's listening to anything she has to fucking say, in all honesty. And they're welcome to being a woman, by the way. Just saying.
Women in women's sports, just to be clear.
We're giving you
we
the
didn't
lady
transition.
Cheers. Can I try something real?
Most of us are under socialized computers.
You know what? Here's the thing. If I'm a liberal, Brianna, and I've spent the last 4 years trying to tell my liberal mates, get off this bullshit about trans athletes destroying women's sport. It may be this election result should serve as the reminder to people, get off this thing, because people don't want to hear it. Let me give Brian the final word on this. Brian?
The only time that I have heard or debated this issue is literally with you and other people who accept right-wing framing on this issue. So the only people who are continuing to perpetuate this as an issue, it is right-wing framing.
I'm not right-wing, so how can it be right-wing framing?
We're not talking about it. Again, the only time I hear about it, you can watch MSNBC.
Pierce, you would gain so much trust from the people that watch your fucking show if you would stop saying you're not right-wing and you're not conservative. You've only been cutting off the people who are liberal in this conversation, freaking the fuck out when they start to make a point.
You can watch communist, Marxist, MSNBC all day long. You will not hear this issue. The only reason that it's put into the zeitgeist on a daily basis is
let me bring in Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin.
Every day on my show.
Dave
They talk
Rubin.
about this stuff. Listen, how about let's try it this way with a simple yes or no answer. Let's try a simple yes or no question to Pakman and the guy in the hoodie.
Right there.
Let's try it this way.
Right there on my phone. MSNBC. There's LGBTQ in breaking news. Right
Picture of him
now
on it too.
MSNBC. Like, I love calling out the BS. It's right there. MSNBC
It is,
on my phone.
Dude,
I don't know what that.
yeah, it is right after an election, and obviously on MSNBC you're having a ton of discussion about why did we lose? Why did liberals lose the election? I wouldn't be surprised if the article that they're talking about is alluding to something along those lines, like did the trans ideology kind of stuff end up affecting the people that were willing to turn out for the vote? And also, by the way, I'm sure there's people writing what Donald Trump being elected is going to mean for certain kind of health care that trans people receive and things of that nature. So yeah, it's not really all that impressive to be able to pull up that they're talking about that right after an election. I think what the Brian, I think his name's Brian Tyler Cohen, I think what he was actually really alluding to and really trying to get at there was that it doesn't have to be an election. It doesn't have the fucking campaign. It doesn't have to be a campaign. It doesn't have to be anything. If you turn on Fox at any given fucking day, you're probably going to catch them talking about trans issues as if the world's on fire. And he's saying that the same can't be said for liberal media. Not that literally they're never going to talk about it or you're never going to be able to find them talking about it, obviously. But yeah.
Like, you guys are so easy to fact check.
Dave Rubin.
Yeah, Pierce, I'll try this very simply for our progressive friends here, for Pakman and the hoodie guy. If you guys I don't know if you guys have kids, but if you had a 14-year-old girl and she was a wrestler, would you be okay? Yes or no? No other words. Yes or no? Would you be okay with her wrestling a 14-year-old boy?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I wrestled for a decade, and men and women wrestle together. That's how it works.
Stop advocating
champ,
this. It hurts me. It hurts.
That's how it works. I wrestled for a decade. There is no distinction between men and women.
You have a progressive warrior fighting for you.
I've
actually got I have a better question. I have a better question.
So, by the way, to be clear here, what he's saying, when you're younger, this fucking stupid ass translate. When you're younger, they will have men or little girls and little boys, or teenage boys and teenage girls. I don't know how it works when you get into high school. It probably gets switched up there, but he's right that younger kids, they wrestle each other. It's just based off of weight. Hello. That was it really goes to say how dumb fucking Dave Rubin is. That he would use that example. Like, that's the one example you should. Why not make it adults? Why not make it adults? Because you really can't argue on that level, I guess, because obviously people should be able to transition. But I mean, I think you can. Like I said, I think that's a better argument. People that have completely went through puberty, should they be able to wrestle? Then in that case, I think most people he's going to have a harder time answering that question in a trans positive way. And I think most people probably just wouldn't. They would just be honest and be like, yeah, people who have fully went through puberty and, got all the benefits from going through all the physical benefits of going through a male puberty compared to a female puberty. I think that's completely fair. But the question they asked ended up being, he just highlighted how much of a fucking uninformed, stupid fuck he is and asked the exact wrong question. I played football, for example. All the way up through high school, there wouldn't be as many as boys because it would be rare, but there would be girls who played football. You would run into every once in a while a girl who's playing high school football, be playing on the line and shit. And then people would get up and be like, they would be like, do we hit her? Like, should we hit her? Or like, and the coach would be like, run through her ass. She's out on the field. She ain't a girl no more. Real story. That actually happened. Not to me, though. I was ready to run through them anyways. I treat everybody, it's equal fucking opportunity when they're out on the field with me getting fucking their head cracked. But I was definitely cracking people's daughters out there. If they got in front of me, they were getting their fucking head bopped.
I have a better question, Brian.
Frankly, I thought Miss
I have a better
Pac-Man was better
question.
than regular
I have a better
Pac-Man, so
question.
maybe he knows.
If Floyd Mayweather says, I'm now identifying as a woman and wants to fight against a female biological actual woman, Brian, would you be happy with that?
That's exactly what I said it was,
no,
by the way.
of course not.
So you agree?
It would. Yes,
you agree.
but we're having two different. Piers, we're having two different conversations. I'm saying that the reason the vast majority of Americans think that this was the #1 issue in this election cycle is because a well-funded right-wing media ecosystem continues to thrust it into the
what are you
zeitgeist
showing us?
as if this is what Democrats care about. As if this is what Democrats are talking.
Why is he interrupting what that guy is saying? He's speaking to Pierce. Pierce chooses to interrupt what he's saying to point at what this fucking cunt who's holding his phone up to the screen is trying to show. Which, by the way, that's exactly what I thought it would be. What a second Trump presidency would mean for trans people like me. I mean, that just makes sense that there would be articles like that being written all across the board.
Yeah. What a second Trump presidency would mean for trans people like me. Headline MSNBC as we speak. But MSNBC never talks about trans issues at all. Yeah, there it is.
They must have access to some sort of
let me
secret...
change.
Rose
Let me
ugly
give
Ron
Dave Rubin
DeSantis.
and change subject. Dave Rubin, I want to play a clip. Hang on.
Yes.
Let's change subject. We've done the trans debate.
Let's
just hang on.
I have a phone too, and it has MSNBC on it. Democrats would get nothing for throwing trans Americans under the bus. Where did we get this thing? This is incredible.
You guys can think it's like some gotcha to that MS acknowledges.
I'm changing the subject.
That MS acknowledges the existence of trans people.
I'm changing the subject.
That doesn't mean that this election cycle.
Right as that guy starts to
this election cycle was some referendum on
Brian,
trans Americans.
I am changing the subject. We're running out of time. I want to discuss other things, all right?
When you lost.
I want to play a clip of Donald Trump at the White House today. He's just met Joe Biden, and this is what happened.
Politics is tough, and it's, in many cases, not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get. And
look at this fucking husk.
You're welcome.
Now, Dave, I've got to say, kudos to Joe Biden for doing that.
Took everything he had to say you're welcome.
Would it not have been better for America if Donald Trump had done that himself 4 years ago? Serious question.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument, but I think we're long past that argument. I would rather focus on what Joe Biden, I think, did right there, and what we now have in a very interesting, 2+ months of the remainder of the Biden administration, where basically Biden, or whatever's left of Biden, or whoever's driving Biden, no longer has to placate to the completely lunatic progressive fringe anymore, and Biden actually could take advantage of some of the reordering that we feel throughout the world right now, not just in America, but quite literally across the globe. And he can actually pave the way for a really nice transition into a Trump presidency that I believe is going to reignite the American dream and bring back an 80s style revolution in America. I think we're going to have a burst throughout the economy. I think it's going to be cultural. I think we're going to get new music and new art and new creativity and new businesses on the forefront of AI and all of these things. And Biden he has 2 months now where he could be like, you know what, we're going to get our 5 or 6 American hostages who are somewhere under Gaza back. We can do that. Like there's a real win for Biden to end up with here, rather than, oh, you ended up with dementia and then ushered in quite literally the worst candidate in American history and placated to the radical left for 4 years when you were sold to us as old, moderate Joe. So Biden, and again, we don't know if Biden's running the show or it's Jill or whoever, but I think there's a real opportunity for him right now to do the right thing and usher in a really strong 4 years for Donald Trump.
Okay, and David Pakman, the appointments that Trump has put forward so far, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will run a new Department of Government Efficiency. I mean, having, the most successful, richest and possibly smartest guy on the planet getting stuck into government bureaucracy, I would have thought that's very popular, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so funny. A Department for Government Efficiency, new department when Trump wants to eliminate departments, and instead of being run by one person, it's being run by two.
But they are going to eliminate, according to Musk, they are going to eliminate dozens of departments, though. So by the end of the process,
he said he's going to get rid of 300 departments.
They're going to get rid of a lot of departments, David Pakman. So, I mean, that seems to me to be a good thing, doesn't it? Or do you think that they should be...
Yeah, listen, in his first term, it was not exactly promises made, promises kept. I'm going to reserve judgment to see what happens. And the reason why, and Dave, honestly, I know we're not getting along here. I do like you. I wish we were still friends. I'd love to get our kids together to play soon. Dave Rubin making predictions... is crazy because his predictions always go wrong. Red wave for Republicans in 2018 didn't happen. 30% black vote for Trump in 2020 didn't happen. Republicans get 54 Senate seats in 2022. I've got a list of 30 Rubin predictions. They're always wrong. So I'm going to wait and see.
I can see why you're looking for new friends, Pakman. I think Piers can attest to this. Being in the business we're in, you're going to get election predictions wrong. I have no problem admitting that. I get election predictions wrong all the time. But when it comes to getting the ideas right, I think I've had a pretty damn good track record on that. And again, you're just illustrating why nobody likes progressives. Your smug, holier-than-thou attitude, it's just disgusting to most people. You think you're the savior for people that want nothing to do with you. And frankly, for all the David Pakman subscribers that want to watch a show that actually is informative and funny and interesting and, dare I say, irreverent, I would tune into the Rubin Report.
Well, they're probably all watching uncensored at the moment. Let me bring in Brian. I mean, Brian, sure. I thought it was very interesting, this meeting between Trump and Biden. They obviously can't stand each other. They've abused each other all year. But Biden did show him the respect of bringing him to the White House and shaking hands, and they talked about a smooth transition and stuff. I mean, that is good, isn't it? After the mayhem we saw 4 years ago, I mean, I like to see that. What I would hope is that Trump, in his inauguration speech, hits a much more unifying tone than he did in 20.
You like that, but you don't really condemn Trump for not doing that and doing the exact opposite of that and pushing that to its absolute limit. You like that. You recognize how important it is. Even Dave Rubin here has recognized that. Thank God they didn't ask the fucking dumbass Ben. But you hold no value on that, really, because when you see somebody do the exact opposite, well, you're actually in full support of that person.
16.
Right. I mean, I guess we're 8 years into new tone for Trump. It's never going to happen. He is not that person. Biden afforded him every ounce of respect that he couldn't be bothered to show, Joe Biden or any Democrat over the last 4 years, while he lied about some big lie, and all of these right-wing mouthpieces perpetuated this lie with zero evidence, and then they all just claimed that because Donald Trump was too small to admit that he lost, they all claimed that there must be some fraud, which magically disappeared as soon as 2024 rolled around.
All right,
so there was mass cheating that the Democrats figured out how to do when they didn't control government. But then when Democrats do control government, we just forgot to cheat this time around? The fact is that there is no acknowledgement from the right that for the last 4 years, these Republican officials that are listening to Donald Trump, these Republican mouthpieces like the ones on this panel, all lied because it served their political interests, but now they won't acknowledge that he was lying once it doesn't serve their political interests anymore.
All right, Ben, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, let's go back to the question you asked. Is it good for America to see these two men shaking hands
don't
and
address
talking?
that.
Yes.
Okay.
I actually think it's probably because Joe Biden experienced what Donald Trump experienced for 4 years, and that was people coming out.
Could you address everything that this man just said, which was directly condemning these two, by the way, and like right-wing figures like that they spent an entire 4 years lying about an election being rigged, lying about it being stolen? Address that. Why would you not?
You, trying to undermine you and having a coup on you. And when the big five of the Democratic Party excommunicated Joe Biden and said, we're going to force you out, I think he was probably the happiest man in America the night that Kamala Harris lost, because it was revenge for them kicking him out. So I think there is a different Joe Biden sitting with a different Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is different now than he was in 2016. And I think these two men have experienced this level of persecution against them. And there probably is genuinely more respect now for the two of them than there has ever been in the last 8 years.
Ben, hang on, Brian. Hang on, Brian.
I've
got a question for Ben.
Heard such lazy commentary in my entire life.
Ben,
Brian,
Brian,
it's free.
Joe Biden was the happiest person in the world.
Let me ask a question.
My dude?
Excuse me. I run this panel at the moment. Ben, a question for you, Ben, because I put this forward on X and
only
got a
time
lot
he
of
actually does
blowback
that is when
from
one of these
MAGA
little guys
Republicans. But I said, if Trump really wanted to set a different tone for the second administration, what about pardoning Hunter Biden? Not because I think he's innocent of the crimes, but because it would go a long way, perhaps, to showing the left that Trump is a different person. That
it doesn't show the left shit. Who gives a fuck about Hunter Biden? Again, conservative Piers, this is shit that you guys care about. I don't give a fuck about Hunter Biden going to jail. Most people I know that are liberal, we literally do not give a fuck about Hunter Biden going to jail. Fuck him for that. Fuck him. I do not give a fuck. So it's like, in my opinion, that is the most tone-deaf, stupid shit in the world. Like, so pardon Hunter Biden based solely off of this like nepotistic connection that he has to Joe Biden. That doesn't show me that you're going to move forward in good faith. I'm sorry. That has nothing to, that's just more, cronyism, more like, hey, I'm going to take care of you. Let's keep on watching each other's back here as we fucking rob the country blind. I do not give a single fuck about whether or not Hunter Biden goes to jail. Straight up. If he goes to prison, I do not give a fuck. He will get out of prison in a better position than almost anybody that's ever went to prison in their life. I do not give a shit. That shows how disconnected Pierce is. Seriously. He's like, give the people a bone here, man. Like, let's show them that, you're going to be a little different this time around. Let Hunter Biden out. What the fuck, bro? Why is it that you think... Look, it's your side that wants to let criminals... I mean, I'm not going to say there's plenty of liberals that do want to let criminals fucking off the hook in our criminals. But I'm just saying, like, as far as, like, from the presidential standpoint, that's fucking Trump that's letting Roger Stone in, like, straight up criminals. A presidential pardon should be used in special cases, like when there's somebody who is a fucking political prisoner, somebody who maybe was overcharged for a crime and had been in prison way past what they realistically should have been. Not letting some fucking rich cunt get off on some crime that he did because his daddy was president. Give me a fucking break. No, that doesn't. It's just, honestly, that makes my fucking skin crawl even hearing that.
What do you think of that?
I think it's a terrible idea. I think you have to be held accountable for your actions.
Yes.
And I think the abuse of power by Hunter Biden, by Joe Biden's brother, and by the Biden crime family, and the money they were receiving from Ukraine and from Russia and from China is egregious. Now, let me also say, I think the olive branch is, hey, I'm not going to weaponize the government to come after you. I'm going to let you go off into the sunset, but I'm not going to make it easy on you and do this pardon, which, by the way, if he did pardon him, I'm a realist. The two people in these boxes over here, I promise you, there's no way that would make them like Donald Trump. They would still hate him. They would still come after him. They would still say he's Hitler and we're all Nazis. And so I'm sorry, their elections have consequences.
Why should it?
We kicked your ass. We're going to go in and
Why
do
should it have that
something.
effect?
And that's the way it's going to be.
Okay, let me bring in Brianna. Brianna, just on a big picture here. Sure. Brianna, as an American, Brianna, what would you like to hear Trump say on Inauguration Day?
I would like to see us find a way to move forward as a country. I've thought so much, Piers, about what I'm going to do differently this time around because Resistance 2.0 is not what the country needs right now. Don't get me wrong. I am a Democrat. I worked 16-hour days trying to get Kamala Harris elected. This election broke my heart. But at the same time, what is frustrating to me about this panel is I see my fellow Democrats and we're sliding into the same mistakes that brought us here. The American people do not care respectfully about your show viewer count. They don't care about this left versus right nonsense. They are looking for stuff that makes their lives better. So what I am committed to doing is Trump has done some stuff I think is good. I think he's taking a much harder stand on Israel. I like the people he's appointing to represent us and to bring our countries closer together after I think Biden and Kamala Harris have really spit in the Jewish community's face. And, what I'm willing to do as an American,
Didn't she just say
not
she was
as a
trying to get them
Democrat,
elected?
so when he does stuff like that, I agree with, I will stand with him. And, Ben, you're wrong. If Trump were to come forward tomorrow and say, for the good of the country, I am pardoning Hunter Biden because these charges are just out of proportion to the issue at hand, that would mean a lot to me. But what I need for y'all to do is to give some of that goodwill back. We are not going to move forward as a country if everyone on this panel cannot stop hating each other at some point.
To let someone get away with abusing their power. That's not goodwill.
Pick something else.
When you abuse the power you're given.
That Trump should be sentenced?
Well, I actually, personally, I think Joe Biden, before he goes out of office, I think he should pardon Trump for the ridiculous Stormy Daniels case. I honestly do.
Wait, can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
Piers, can I ask a question here?
Yes.
Ben, do you think...
Does that not just feel like two elites doing favors for one another, just basically in front of the public? I just cannot even believe
that Donald Trump should go through with his sentencing then, because everybody should be held accountable for their crimes?
I don't. No, I think the whole thing was a farce.
No.
I think
do you think that
the whole
Donald
Stormy
Trump
Daniels case, I think Joe Biden should pardon him and end the whole thing now.
Do you think that Donald Trump should be allowed to be continued being prosecuted for in the Washington, D.C. case, or the classified documents case, or the Georgia RICO prosecution, since everybody has to be held accountable for their crimes?
No, because I think it's very clear that it says you cannot go after a sitting president, and I think we all know
that's
his
not what
law
I asked
here, and every
That's
time
not what I asked you.
I just answered the question. I just said no. The first thing that came out of my mouth was the word no, and then I explained why. You need to listen.
So you said everybody should be held accountable for their crimes, but not Trump.
The American people just held Donald Trump accountable, and they said they thought it was crap, and they reelected him.
That's not how it works. I'm asking you.
Yes, it is.
It's exactly how it works. That everybody should be held accountable for their crimes.
And that is exactly why they have said we're going to wind it all down.
Okay,
That's exactly
all right, listen, Dave Rubin has to leave in a couple of minutes. Dave, you talked about predictions for elections. It would be remiss of me not to point out that about 9 days before the election, I said this on Fox News.
Oh, God.
Look, my gut feeling, and I had this in 2016, and when I was saying it and writing it in 2016, people were laughing at me. But I kept saying, I'm getting a feeling that the Trump train is steaming to victory. I get that feeling again now. I've been in LA, I've been in New York. I'm getting a lot of people who did not vote Trump last time, but who are prepared this time, even if they don't like him, they're prepared to vote for him this time to stop Kamala Harris becoming president. I'm going on my gut, and I'm feeling he could actually end up winning quite big. You know the moral of that?
Anybody that watched your show, Piers, they knew this is how you felt. You said that you said you thought Trump's going to win. Why?
Sorry, Dave Rubin is always trust a British gut. is the moral of that story.
Yeah, well, the moral of the story, I think, for the progressives is stop being so authoritarian and hysterical and better than everybody, because what you've done is you've taken all of the good liberals of America, of which there are many, and most of them are now Republicans, or at least voting for Republicans. And I would like to say to Brianna, who I've enjoyed watching a bit of her evolution here, is that what I think you're going to find over the next year or two is that consistently you are going to have some differences with people on the right, but they are going to welcome you. They are going to treat you with respect. They're going to agree to disagree, and you're going to have rich conversations and find an awful lot of agreement where you thought there would only be scorched earth. And on the other side of it, you're going to find exactly what you have found over the course of this panel. And I think very quickly that will change your party affiliation. But maybe I'm wrong, because I do get some predictions wrong. We'll see.
Well, thank you, Dave Rubin. Thank you. Sorry, who was that?
Can I just say?
Yeah, Brianna, last word to you. Last word to Brianna.
I hear what you're saying, Dave, and respectfully, trans rights are under attack like I've never seen in my entire life. And I transitioned over 20 years ago. So I will not be moving to the other side like you, but I'm always open for a conversation. We got trans rights by policies right down the middle, and it's what this fringe left has completely thrown us under the bus on. So
yeah, and you know what, Brianna? I think it's such an important point. I absolutely and have always wanted fairness and equality for all trans people of the same kind that I enjoy, but not to the...
Piers, okay, so let's get back to Piers talking about his fucking show's the biggest out of all these people. This is one thing that people don't do, though. They don't watch your show to listen to you. I would rather hear these guys, even the ones I don't fucking like, I'd rather hear them debate than hear you hop in here and fucking bloviate and fuck the whole conversation.
Where it starts to erode women's rights. Exactly. And that's the crucial debate that has to be properly had.
Pierce,
and that's the one Democrats have failed
on. Pierce, this whole thing changed 10 years ago. If I was writing a book on the history of trans rights and when it went wrong, it was on your show. 10 years ago, Janet Mock on CNN, you held an interview with her. We were not talking about trans stuff back then. Everyone in the community was thrilled about it. What did she do? She went on your program. She lectured you. She was beyond rude. She told you she was not interested in your opinion on anything. She just shut you down. It was this.
Well, worse than that, she said that I was very respectful to her.
You were.
I gave her the platform of CNN Primetime Worldwide, and then because I said that she was born a boy and then transitioned to be a trans woman. She said that was transphobic and tried to basically destroy me. And right there was the start of this nonsense. Obviously, I wasn't being transphobic. Actually, I was being completely biologically, scientifically accurate. She was born a biological boy, and she transitioned and became a trans woman. And I have full respect for her for doing that. But don't then go after people who actually are allies. That's the irony.
But Pierce, this is the problem. I'm saying this to you respectfully, but I've seen your evolution over the last 10 years, and I understand why you have less patience from my side than you did 10 years ago. I get it. I deal with these freaks every day. But you've got to... Our stories, people that understand that actually medically transition, our stories are not in the media. No one is talking to us. We're horrified by all this nonsense.
I agree.
Brianna, give us a shot.
Brianna, it's why you're such an important voice in this. Because again, I have repeatedly said the people I feel most sorry for are people who have transitioned, who are just trying to get on with their lives and just be treated equally and fairly, and they're getting dragged into all these ludicrous headlines like 6'4" biological male who was crap at swimming in the men's game transitions and suddenly beats women by 50 seconds. It is
and
bullshit.
By the way, that's not at odds with anything. That's not at odds with anything that the Trump administration is pushing right now. Remember, many years ago, when Trump was asked about trans bathrooms, he said, "Hey, I build hotels. You want to tell me I can have one bathroom? That's fine."
And by the way, when it comes to Trump and the LGBTQ community, can we just remind us? In fact, why don't we? Given it's been quite a contentious panel. Trump has been ending his rallies with the famous YMCA dance, right? Which is a gay anthem performed by a bunch of gay guys, right? And is now taken fire and has now become a trend around the world. Why don't we all come together as one big cis LGBT, whatever you want to call it, community, and have a little dance? Here we go.
Oh my God, they had to take the music out. That's so fucking embarrassing. Oh, God. There's no music playing. Oh, my God. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. Breaking news on ESPN. LeBron just retired. Oh, my God. You shouldn't have followed his lead. Let him embarrass himself. Now everybody's, oh.
And may I note the two Liberals were the two biggest wusses not dancing. As the rest of us got fully into the groove.
Good for them.
Anyway, young men and Brianna, lovely to have you all on the programme.
Good for
Thank
them.
you all very much.
Having some fucking respect for themselves.
Indeed, enjoyed the spirited debate. Long may it continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, now the Democratic campaign has been labelled a $1 billion disaster by dissenting voices within the DNC amid reports of lavish spending on celebrities. Despite record-breaking fundraising, the campaign somehow appears to have ended up in debt. Joining me now is Lindy Lee, a Democratic donor and a member of the DNC's National Finance Committee. Well, welcome to you, Lindy. It seems quite extraordinary that Kamala Harris should get all this cash and then still get into debt. How has that happened?
Your guess is as best as mine. So thank you so much for having me.
So here, one thing, I will criticize this for sure. And like I said, I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris. I didn't like her campaign. I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. I say fuck both of them, honestly. I find myself to be, a moderate's tough, but I just don't identify as really full-on either or. In this case, one of the most egregious fucking missteps I've ever heard from any campaign ever is they're $20 million in debt, and a huge portion of that came from paying celebrities for endorsements. Hear that. Paying celebrities with endorsements, such as Beyonce, Oprah. You're paying these. The reason I mentioned these two, because they're actually significant as far as like, both of these people are billionaires. Billionaires. You paid billionaires to endorse you. I'm fucking disgusted with the Democratic Party for this. I think it's one of the most abhorrent things I've ever heard from them doing from a, that wasn't like undercover or some kind of like shadowy operation. They straight up took money from individuals like you or I that are liberal and work our ass off, work a normal job. We may or may not have $2,000 in our bank account, okay, at any given time. They took your money, this person, this American, because that's a pretty basic American archetype there. Somebody that does not list check to check, so on and so forth. Took your money and then reappropriated it to billionaires for endorsements. Completely unforgivable. We shouldn't see Kamala Harris. We shouldn't see Kamala Harris as a potential presidential nominee ever again. We shouldn't see anybody that was in charge of that campaign in charge of another campaign again in their fucking life. It is so disrespectful and counter message from what Democrats are supposed to stand for. Literally putting the money of poor people into rich people's pockets, which already happens based off our fucked up system that we have that exists in America. But in this case, you did it for an endorsement. When a celebrity or somebody that's affluent generally, when they support a candidate, the idea is that they give you money. That money is to run your campaign, run ads, so on and so forth. I also saw something where they paid some insane amount of money to build the set for the Call Her Daddy fucking podcast. I mean, how fucking brain dead can this campaign and these people be who run this party? The DNC, that's one thing I'll agree with these guys. The DNC is full of a bunch of fucking idiots who do not have their pulse on America, of the American person, American people. They have no clue. Like, I honestly think that they thought that this would be a passable strategy. And probably even with this information being public, they still would probably be a little confused as to why it's such a big deal. The big deal is that when you claim to be the party that advocates for the working class, for you to take the money from the working class, and then for you to put that money into, the fucking masters of our society's fucking pockets, that already, fucking money is something they don't need. it is comical because it is so funny. It is so fucking funny that you would take the money from a person that works a normal fucking job, has to support their family, and put it into the pockets of some cunt like Beyonce. Some stupid motherfucker, like, whoever made that decision, literally, like, get the fuck out of the park. Get the fuck out. Literally. Like, if you can't get on board with what the fucking literal mission is here, which that is counterintuitive to it, putting money into fucking billionaires' pockets for nothing. God, man. I don't know. You know, let's wrap it up here. I don't want to listen to this fucking lady. I'm done listening to Piers. So I appreciate you guys. Subscribe for more content. I hope you enjoyed this. Get in the comments. Let me know if you disagreed. Argue with me. Tell me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about and I'm a dumbass. That's fine. And yeah, make sure you subscribe for more content like this, more political content, more conversations, more discussions, also about sports, pop culture, movies, TV shows. Go check out some of the video I just did on the Penguin. That had me about as heated as I was here, to be honest. I was crushed by that. And other than that, just make sure you subscribe. Show some love. Sit in politics. Share this thing. Share this thing. Help it get out to more people. Help us grow. I'd appreciate it. Keep an eye out for the live so we can chop it up in the future. And that's it.